Hey guys, Adam here with AmericanMuscle.com. Today we're taking a closer look at and of course installing the Raxiom dual LED projector halo headlights available for the 08 to 14 Challenger without factory HIDs. You should be checking these out if you're looking for an easy to install halo projector headlight here that's going to modernize the front end of your Challenger, getting rid of the very traditional chrome and reflective headlights that really don't have the brightest technology or the most attractive technology. Now, Raxiom's built these guys to be a complete replacement to your factory headlight unit, and as you can see, it carries the same similar interior layout of the design, but the technology is far improved. This is going to use an H9 halogen bulb there to give you a bright fixated projector light for your high and low beams. That guy is going to light up the road a lot more than your factory light ever did, and I gotta say the halos surrounding them are so incredibly bright. In my opinion, these are some of the brightest halos I think I've ever seen on any aftermarket headlight, Challenger or otherwise. These halos are super bright to look at. They'd probably light up the road by themselves without the H9 bulb in between. Now, as you can see, your headlight section here with the high and low beams is surrounded by a bright pure white halo accent. That pure white light is something to take note of. A lot of halos out there have a bluish hue to them. This is absolutely a pure white. Now, the secondary light over here, your parking light, is a light bulb that you're going to transfer over from your factory housing, and that, as you can see, is surrounded by a pretty unique amber halo. The amber halo is also extremely bright, a lot brighter than what I've seen before, and I gotta say, amber halos are pretty unique. You don't really see them in a lot of aftermarket headlights. Looking at these headlights from Raxiom, that's something you can expect with this kit. Now, with that said, the halo accents do require some splicing for the install. It's extremely simple, and it comes with quick splice connectors to make sure you don't have to use any wire strippers or wire cutters. You're not cutting anything, so this is actually reversible. If you do want to go back to stock at some point, you can take the quick splice connectors off, which is definitely worth noting. Now, while I say splicing, it is a light splicing that you can put back to stock at some point due to the quick splice connectors included in the kit. Now, I'll get to that in just a little bit here, but the first thing I want to talk about here is the pricing. Now, the price for this set of headlights comes in right around $400, making it a little bit more of a premium option in the category. I will say that halo headlights or halo lights in general for Challengers don't really have an easy solution in the category other than these Raxiom options. Now, historically, Challenger owners haven't really had preferable options when it comes to halo accent lights. Typically, you'd either have the option to cut open your factory headlight housing to install halo rings, or use surface mount halo lights like the option from Oracle. Surface mount lights are really just 3M sticky lights that go out on the side right in front of your polycarbonate lens. Now, that's not really something that looks amazing when the lights are off. They can really look good at nighttime, but when you're riding around in the daytime, they stick out like a sore thumb. Raxiom's option here, in my opinion, do a far and away better job than any of those options out there, and I definitely recommend it if you're looking for a modern solution to this. The nice thing about these headlights is it uses a black interior housing with a clear lens to give you the impression of a smoked headlight while allowing all of that light output to go straight through. Now, the install for this, I'm going to give 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter because it does require you to take off the front bumper. Dodge has made it a little bit more difficult to uninstall your factory headlights, so you have to get the front bumper off, which requires a whole lot of preliminary steps that I'll take you through in just a minute. If you're not comfortable taking off the front bumper, there's no shame handing this over to a professional to get done properly, but I will say, with the right hand tools, you can definitely get it done yourself in the driveway at home. It'll take about 2 hours from start to finish. I'm going to walk you through it. Let's get started. All right, tools used in this install include an impact gun or a ratchet, a couple of extensions, universal swivel joint is recommended, 10mm deep end swivel sockets, Phillips head screwdriver, a panel removal tool, and a pair of pliers. All right, now for the gun install, we do have to remove our bumper to access the headlight bolts. So what we're gonna have to do is a couple of preliminary things. We popped our hood. We're gonna remove the 2 pieces for the radiator shroud to expose a couple of pushpin clips, and I'll use this panel removal tool to get those off. So under the hood, you'll find this little open hole on the side, on each side. You're gonna pull up on that and set these guys aside. All right, now the first points that are connecting the bumper are these little black pushpin clips. There's 6 of them on the black pieces. There are a couple in between that are on your factory paint color, in our case, Hemi Orange. You don't have to do those that are sitting on the paint color, just on the black plastic trim. Use a panel removal tool or something similar to get these guys off. You're basically just lifting up on the center piece, and then it loosens up and you can pull it out. Set these aside. All right, now in the corners above each headlight where the bumper meets the fender, there's a small 10mm nut on a stud holding on the corners there. We have to get that off. For this, I would highly recommend a 10mm swivel socket. I'm gonna use my impact gun, an extension, and my swivel socket here. It might be a little tough to see, but once you get that locked on there, you can get it off. All right, just be careful not to drop it in. It can be pretty difficult. All right, just like that. Repeat that on the other side. For this one, we put the Challenger up in the air a little bit, but you can work on the ground as well. We're gonna be removing the 4 plastic pushpin clips in the wheel well. This is holding on this liner, which will give us access to a bolt underneath. Grab a panel removal tool, and you're gonna remove all 4. Ours is missing one, but that's all right. We've got 3 more to work with. You should have 4 there. Next, what you're gonna do is take the wheel well liner and you're gonna peel it back. Underneath of that, you'll see that there is a 10mm bolt holding the fender to the bumper. All right, for this next bolt, we have this 10mm right here. I'm gonna use my 10 socket to get this off. Next, we have a bolt that's pretty difficult to get to. It's where the fender meets the bumper upward a little bit more, parallel to the headlight. So it's right about here facing toward the back of the vehicle. It's a nut on a stud. Now, you're never really gonna be able to see that on camera. It's so close up in here, but we're gonna use an extension and a swivel socket to get in there. We're gonna drop it on and remove the 10mm nut. Like I said, tough to see, but if you follow this line up, it's right about here. All right, so now I'm gonna use 2 extensions for this guy and just feed a socket on a swivel joint to get up in there at the right angle. All right, I'm locked on right now. Just gonna get it off. All right, at this point, you can reach your hand in there and get the nut off the stud. All right, and there it is. Now you can repeat this exact same process in the wheel well on the other side. At this point, we got the vehicle up in the air completely to access the front splitter here and the belly pan. We have to remove all the bolts connecting these 2 together in order to drop our bumper. Now, there's typically a bunch of 7mm screws holding on the front here, all along the front and the sides underneath of your fog lights. Now, ours have been replaced over the years. These are Phillips heads on ours. Yours will probably be 7mm. So just grab the appropriate tool and we're gonna get these guys off. All right, now we can move on to the sides. All right, so I have 2 7mm on the side here. Same thing on the other side. All right, so now if you go backward a little bit to the belly pan, we have a 10mm bolt on our subframe. All right, now if you go directly next to it on the other side, there's another one to take off. If you look at this little indent in the middle here, there should be 3 holes with 3 black pushpin clips. Now again, our Challenger has gone through some replacements over the years. These 3 guys are missing currently, but you should have 3 of those. Grab your panel removal tool, the same as we did under the hood, and get those 3 out of the way. All right, so next up, we have a couple of pushpin clips left. We have 2 here on the inside of the wheel well. We're gonna remove them on both sides. All right, I'll do the same thing on the other side. All right, next step, this is loose, so let's pull our belly pan off. All right, a couple of things to note here before we grab our bumper off. Make sure when you're pulling this off, you're being careful not to scratch the paint with the studs on the side. Also, you don't want to go too far with it because we still have to disconnect our fog light harness. So as soon as you get it off, you want to set it gently down close to the vehicle so you're not pulling on the harness. So from here, let's disconnect the sides, just like that. Same thing over here. All right, let's get it off. Going right down with it right here. And now we can reach in and unplug our harnesses. All right, now on our passenger side, both fog lights feed into one master harness, which we're just gonna reach down here and disconnect. You can follow the fog lights down, find this connector, and just disconnect. Now we can set our bumper safely aside, making sure we're not scratching the paint. All right, next up, we're gonna remove our headlights, finally. We have 3 bolts, one at the top, 2 underneath there that were covered by the bumper originally. We're gonna grab a T30 Torx bit and an extension and get these 3 bolts off. All right, with this last guy out of the way, just carefully pull your headlight out of place and disconnect the harnesses. All right, so I'm gonna lift up on the red locking tab, pinch and disconnect on both sides. Set your stock headlight aside. So we got our factory headlight off of our 13 RT behind me, and it's on the table next to our Raxiom LED Projector Halo headlight. Now I want to take you through some similarities and differences between the two kits here, and I gotta say, there are some in both of those categories. Now as far as construction and quality goes, your new Raxiom headlight uses all OEM quality. It's gonna have an ABS housing, which is impact resistant, same color, same shape with OEM fitment. And the headlight lens here is also a clear polycarbonate like your factory one. So it's not gonna fade over time, it's gonna stay crystal clear. Now the inside is where we start to see some changes. This still has some similarities in terms of design layout. We still have the high and low beams in the same spot. We still have the amber light in the same spot for your parking and turn signals. But the actual technology is a little bit different. Your factory light uses some incandescent bulbs. Your new option here uses H9 halogens as well as LEDs for the accent lighting. The projector light here uses a focused light beam to make sure that at night you have increased safety and visibility. The projector light there uses a bright white H9 halogen, like I said, with a halo surrounding it as the accent. Now the halo surrounding it is a pure white 5K color temperature LED. That's gonna come on as a DRL or daytime running light with your parking lights when spliced in using the wires on the back. Next to it, you're also gonna see your parking light surrounded by an amber halo. Now that's pretty unique in the category. Not a lot of aftermarket headlights here use an amber halo. That's gonna give you a nice, bright, really vibrant light coming on with your parking lights. And honestly, that's my personal favorite part about this. The inside of the housing here is also black, which is gonna give you the impression of a smoked headlight without hindering any of the light output that you could potentially see with a smoked lens. So the black housing, clear lens gives you the impression of a smoked headlight. So it's got a stealthy look at the front end. Very different than your factory light here, which uses a chrome reflective interior. It's really flashy, very traditional, not very modern at all. The new technology here is gonna do a far and away better job at lighting up the nighttime. It's got an adjustable screw in the back so you can adjust it yourself as well. And it's also just a lot more modern and attractive, especially with the accent LEDs. Now what we're gonna do at this point is transfer over our parking light bulb. That's gonna come over to your new headlight here. And then we're gonna work on some splicing that we're gonna do inside the vehicle. So at this point, you're gonna pull out your factory parking light bulb. It's just your amber one here on the inside. You're just gonna twist it counterclockwise and pull straight back. And we're just gonna swap it over to our new housing, doing the same thing in reverse. So just find the way that it lines up here in that open socket. Press it in, turn it clockwise to lock it in place. Now, as you can see, there's 2 loose wires here, a red and a black. That's your ground and your power. These are gonna splice into the parking light harness inside of the vehicle. There's a number of ways to do that, but they do include quick splice connectors that I'm gonna show you guys how to use now on those parking lights. So it's really quick and really easy. No need to strip any wires or anything like that. So let's get to it. All right, at this point, we can focus on splicing. Now, we do have 2 sets of LEDs that we wanna splice in since there are 2 different halos. We have a halo set coming from the bottom with a red and black wire, power and ground. And we have ones up here, same thing, red and black. That's for your amber accent lights. Now I'm gonna pull off the excess wire on the front there just to expose the copper. Now what we're gonna do is take a look at our factory harness. Now of course we have 2 plugs. We have a green one here for your high and low, and then you have the black one here for your parking. Let's just plug in the green one just because we know that that one's easy to do, and push in the red locking tab. Now for the rest of them, we wanna splice in our halos before we do anything. Now in order to do that, you're basically gonna take both black wires from each halo and twist them together. And then you're gonna take both power wires, both red wires, and twist them together, insert them into the splice connectors and clamp them down to your factory harness. All right, now before we do that, let's twist the 2 together. So we've got both black wires here. Basically gonna take the copper and just give them a twist so that they become one wire connection. And the same thing with the power. Perfect. Now on your parking light, the factory parking light, that's what we're clamping these onto. You're gonna need to determine which one is your power and which one's your ground. Now I know that our black wire with the green stripe here is our ground, and our white wire with the purple stripe here is our power. If your colors are different, you're definitely gonna need a light tester to determine which one's your power if you're unclear. All right, so what we're gonna do here is take our quick splice connector, this little clamp, and we're gonna insert that into our black wire first. All right, so you're just gonna put that in place just like that. Now on one side, you'll see the black wire going in and an open hole on the side. The open hole is where we're gonna put our halos. So you're gonna grab the black wire, insert that into the open hole. Now the way this works is, now that we have this inserted, we're basically gonna clamp down this metal bar at the top, and it's gonna connect both the factory harness to our halos to make sure that our halos work properly. You just wanna make sure that the wires are inserted all the way and that this metal bar will clamp. Grab some pliers, clamp them down. Give the wires a tug, make sure they're nice and secure in there. Flip this tab over and lock it shut. Perfect. Now we're gonna do the same thing for our red wire going to the power, which again on our vehicle is the white wire with the purple stripe. All right, close that up. Now we can connect this harness to our parking light socket and test out our lights, making sure they work before we move forward with the install. All right, at this point, once you determine that your lights are working properly and the splices are good, you're gonna install the headlight. Now it uses the same factory mounting points, make sure the bolt holes are lined up. You're gonna take your factory Torx bolts or Torx screws, and you're gonna install those into the stock locations. I'm just gonna put this one in by hand, a couple of threads. Grab your T30 Torx bit and tighten it down. Next step, we have our bumper placed up against the front of our vehicle. Remember, you have to plug in that fog light harness, so that's step number one, down here on our passenger side. So make sure that guy lines up, snap it in place. All right, next step, you wanna carefully get your bumper back up onto the front end of your vehicle. Now, this can be pretty tricky by yourself. I'd recommend a helping hand, but if you're only alone, you just wanna be careful that the studs on the side aren't contacting your paint, because that can really scratch things up. So you're just gonna carefully lift this guy up into place and connect the sides. All right, so you want to feed that stud into the side and clip it in place. Do the same thing on both sides. All right, next up, now that we have the bumper in place, I like to take the 10mm nuts that go in these corners here above the headlights to connect the bumper to the fender, just so it holds itself in place. I think these are good connection points for that. So what we're gonna do is just take that nut, insert it into my swivel socket. We're gonna carefully feed that back onto the stud and tighten it down. All right, same thing on the other side. Now we got the vehicle back up in the air, we're gonna focus on that bolt connecting the fender and the bumper here. That's really difficult to see inside of the wheel well there. Grab your 10mm nut, you're gonna feed it in by hand, and then tighten it down with your socket. All right, once you get it on the stud, you can try to feed it in a couple of threads like I've got there. Now I'm gonna grab my 2 extensions and my swivel to tighten it down. All right, so now we can put on that little mud flap type trim using that 10mm bolt. Make sure you're using the proper side. Tighten it down with your 10 socket. so now you can take those black push pin clips and put them back in place using the wheel well liner. All right, and from there, you're just gonna repeat this on the other side. All right, next up we can put our belly pan in place, and this can be a little bit difficult. You're gonna feed it in the corners, making sure that the side flaps go behind the wheel well liners. Feed it into the middle here, and make sure the other end goes in as well. All right, I'm gonna start with the screws at the front and work my way around. All right, so now you can put the 10mm bolt back in each of its places. All right, so now we just have a couple of push pin clips to put in on both sides in the wheel well, and then we'll wrap up underneath. Same thing on the other side. All right, now we can put her down. Next up, we're gonna put all 6 push pin clips back in place under the hood. All right, now we can put the panels back on and we're good to go. Right, so this guy we're gonna feed back onto the left and the right. All right, from here, shut your hood and you're good to go. Well guys, that's gonna wrap up my review and install for the Raxiom dual LED halo projector lights available for the 08 to 14 Challenger without factory HIDs. Pick your setup right here at AmericanMuscle.com.